If that makes you fret, Jesus said this: see that you are not troubled, because you're operating under a different order. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is now. No, not yet. So those people who have been saying that rapture is now, those people who have been saying that so and so, now let me put it in perspective. They are not altogether wrong. It is not now, it is near. And there's a big difference. And there's a way that the Bible puts it. It says it is at the door. And I would explain what I mean very closely to you. Then he says, for nations will rise against nations, and nations rising against nations, and kingdoms against people, and kingdoms, and there will be what? Famines. Is there a fuel shortage? Is there a looming energy crisis? Is there famine in some places? And then pestilence. Has there been a plague recently? COVID-19, and it killed many people. And earthquakes. Have there been earthquakes? Tsunamis. Okay, and so on and so forth. And then this is what he says. In various places. And this gospel of the kingdom will be what? Preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. So what this scripture is saying is that all of these things is supposed to be a prompt to you that start preaching. This is a prompt to you to say that, listen to this, you are the sickle that will bring in a harvest. God is just causing a shaking around the whole world, and the shaking is to make people's hearts ready so they are ripe for the harvest. I'm going somewhere with this. Don't worry, I'm coming to you, and I will show you how it really applies to you and why you are going through what you're going through. You know, I had to reach out to a couple of members of ours yesterday because I was concerned. They have friends. There's a lady in this church, I think her best friend lives in Ukraine. And I think she's actually married to a Ukrainian. And so I asked her, say, how's your friend doing now? She said, well, her and the children are in a safe place now. They're in another country. But it's sad because her husband is in Ukraine. Nobody between the ages of, is it 21 and 65? 18, can you imagine? My sons would have been there if they, and 18, and I would be there as well. They are all drafted, they will be drafted into the army when it is needed. Ukraine is a very peaceful country. I've been to Ukraine twice. So they are like yourself and myself. And what am I trying to say to you? Listen to this. But God has a strategy, you know, in all of this. Do you know, I had a response, an interview of a Zimbabwean pastor. He's from Zimbabwe. He's lived there for 36 years. And he said, you know what? Ukrainians and Russians, they sound alike. They look alike, but they are not alike. Long story short, he said, Ukrainians are more open to religion. Russians are hardly ever. Now, Ukraine, as we know it today, they say is perhaps one of the most Christianized nations in Europe. So you know what God has done? If I'm not God, okay, if it was my option, I would not choose that way. But if we look at scripture, God uses interesting things to shift the gospel. When God wanted to make sure that the gospel was preached to the world, he allowed people kill Christians so that they will leave Jerusalem. If Ukrainians are one of the most Christianized peoples, Europe needs to be saved. So what is it? He's causing them to move to Poland, to France, and to various parts of the world. Now, I won't spend too much time on that. I just said that to say that it is harvest time. And people are most responsive. And you know what this person said? When I said, they said, well, I'm praying for the husband. She said, well, she's praying that God will use it as an opportunity for him to yield. Which means he's probably not a believer. Did you see who was left behind? During the pandemic, at the heat of it, not after the vaccine had been developed, you know what I mean? When people were dying every day, you look at the records, 1,000 people. Were people not more open to the gospel? The harvest is ripe. Now, When I say that Jesus said, do not be troubled, that he says that the end is not yet, but he says it is near or at the door. Let me give you an example. But when he talks about, he says, can you not see the signs? In medical science, there are signs we are trained to understand. I can look at a woman and say, oh, this feels she's in so and so. And we can also look and, we know when a person is going into labor. There's also something called spurious labor, false labor. If the woman is shouting, it does it, just chill. So my wife's EDD for my first son, the expected date of delivery was on the 25th of December. And she actually went into labor on Christmas Day while she was roasting turkey. And I rushed her to the hospital. When we got there, they looked at me that, don't you know, this is spurious labor. Which means they were contractions. But I didn't want to take any chances, so I took her. Guess what? She did not give birth until the 27th of December. So, what is happening right now in the world is the 25th of December labor. Its attention is for you to get ready. So I took her there, so she was in place and everything. And so this is the period between now and when Christ will come. And so everything, that's why. And how do you know that labor has really come? She was feeling real labor pains, but it was not birthing. It was not the time to push. How do you know it is the time to push? The labor pains will increase with consistency. And it will become more rhythmic or regular. One every 3 minutes or so. That is one of the major signs. Now, if you notice, we are definitely very, very close to pushing time. You know why? Because you would have thought, we will rest after pandemic problem. Then Ukraine is now saying, do you understand? So you don't know what is going to come next. Who is here? So this is why it's important to read the signs. And then doctors know that, part of the signs is that the cervix will dilate, will get bigger. And so we keep checking 2 centimeters, 4 centimeters, 8 centimeters. Now, I said all of that to say this. Labor, how long is a woman's pregnancy? 9 months. 9 is the number for harvest. In the revelation I had where I was going for a meeting and I was late, it was 9 a.m. There are 9 fruits of the Spirit. And so what are we supposed to do in this time? This is what Jesus told us. He says in Luke chapter 19 verse 13, and he called his 10 servants and delivered them 10 pounds of spiritual gifts and said unto them, occupy till I come. Don't sit down, don't lock down. What should you be doing? Look at ways of invading territories, because it shows that it says, and when all of these things are happening, this is what must happen. This gospel must be preached in all the earth. Let me tell you this. The only way to remain safe in seasons like this is preach the gospel. Those who are preaching the gospel will be undercover. Oh, I know this is not the kind of message you came to hear, but I don't care. You did not employ me. I'm in the service of the one who employed me, and my job is to please only one master. So when it says occupy till I come, which means anything else you are doing, you are playing games. And I will show you how you can tie everything to occupying. So, what does that mean for us? Listen to this. What will happen in the harvest season? 3 things. First of all, 3 things that are clear from the scripture we just read about the parable of the wheat and the tares. Number 1, this is a season of performance of many unfulfilled prophecies. You didn't hear that. In this season, the cervix of every prophecy is ripe. So unfulfilled Bible prophecies will be fulfilled, but let me also encourage you, unfulfilled personal prophecies will be fulfilled if it is of God.